WBNE.
Hello and welcome to episode 170, all about the Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 5, Partings, being the 170th part of That's What I'm Talking About. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. I've been experiencing the world of J.R.R. Tolkien for the first time, but right now we are all experiencing the Rings of Power for the first time together. Today, I am joined by just some of the wonderful ladies of Tolkien Talk. Andy, Callie, and Amber, welcome.
Woo! Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you guys on. I am fully ripping. It's kind of a combination of some things, Amber and Andy, that you both have done on TikTok. Amber, you did this like really great compilation video of like shouting out so many non-male men creators, and Andy, you just did a really great live stream with so many great female creators, women creators. So I stole your ideas and did it for an episode.
The more we can get like women talking in this space, the more I'm here for it.
Amen.
I'm all for uplifting the non-men Tolkien creators. It's not that we don't love the men; we love them too.
I love a selection of them.
Yeah, right.
Selection. Some men, but I just, and I've said it before. I just feel like if you are a non-man, if you're a woman or a non-binary creator in this fandom, it is so much harder to get visibility.
Yeah.
Agreed. For the listeners' sake, do you guys just want to do a quick rundown of your background with Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, so that the listeners, if they don't know who you are, so that they know where you're coming from, like with your knowledge into the series?
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Amber. I'm Critique Geek on TikTok. My background, so I started reading the books when I was about 10, 11. I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings because the films were coming out, and I thought it was very, very important that I read the books before the films came out.
True.
So I've been a longtime fan, and then I studied Tolkien from from literature perspective and a media studies perspective during undergrad. And then in my graduate degree is in film studies and screenwriting. So I'm qualified to talk about this.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Andy. I have a podcast called Tolkien with Friends, where we are comparing the Peter Jackson films to the Lord of the Rings books, and then we're going to be doing The Hobbit soon, but that's neither here nor there. It's going to be interesting. You can follow me on TikTok at Andy Inc. That's Andy INC. It's an old username that I made up for Threadless 100 years ago. And everywhere else, it's like Tolkien with Friends.
And Callie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Callie Cosplay, mostly on TikTok. I also do a podcast with New Beta Do Beta. It's called Voices of Arda. And you can find us on YouTube and Spotify and Google Podcasts. Is that what I think that's what it's called? Started reading Tolkien very, very young. So my first relationship with it is definitely the books. And then when I got a little bit older, I'm not going to say how much older, the movies came out. So the movies definitely came after the books for me. But I would not. I don't call myself a lore master or anything like that. I just enjoy the stories and all that kind of stuff. And the themes of Tolkien are really what I'm here for.
Same.
Wonderful. Yay! The episode description for this one, episode 5, Partings, says, Nori questions her instincts. That, I feel like that didn't happen, but okay.
Maybe.
Elrond struggles to stay true to his oath. Halbrand weighs his destiny. The Southlanders prepare for attack. So that's all nice and vague.
Yeah.
I just enjoy that. And then this episode, harsh. This episode on Rotten Tomatoes has a 62% critics rating. That's rough.
Critics. Oh.
From the real critics this time.
They've been rating all the other episodes like in the 80s.
I'm not surprised, but we can talk about why later.
Okay, to compare, the previous episode was a critics rating of 88%. Interesting.
That's pretty good.
Then again,
Yeah.
Everyone remember, keep in mind reviews and ratings and everything are subjective. So I guess we'll see. Yeah, I'm so interested to hear other people's thoughts on this episode because I watched it and I really enjoyed seeing a lot of plots moving forward and developing. There were a few things that I was just like, meh about.
Yeah.
And other things that I think I honestly just have no other, I don't know, like touchstone or reference for. So I'm just like, yeah, this seems good to me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. If you saw my most recent TikTok, we get some quality Halbrand content in this episode. And at this point, that's kind of what I'm here for. But aside from that, I appreciated this episode. I also love the Numenor theme. So anytime they bring that in, I'm like, the scene is amazing already.
I know. Like right at the end, I mean, this isn't, it's just a shot of the ships. Like, and I'm like, wow. And I'm like,
it's beautiful.
It's so pretty.
Yeah. It's beautiful. The score was really capturing me this episode too. So like there were definitely a lot of standout moments that I really thought were great and I really enjoyed watching. So that being said, what are some others general thoughts that y'all had?
I mean, it's truly for me, like Arondir can do no wrong. I'm very intrigued by Adar and like the orcs. I would just watch them. I would just watch a whole show of just like the Southland stuff, truly. And then, and I'm interested to see what's going on with the Harfoots. I'm also interested to see where it is that they're going in the part of this story. In part of this episode, they're like traveling. And we knew that they were doing that previously, but, they're continuing on that journey. And I'm interested to see where they end up and how the stranger plays into that dynamic between all the other Harfoots. Because now he is a part of the caravan. So, but he hasn't had like he started to play more of a part here, but I'm interested to see like how that changes over time. And I feel like I watched the Numenor stuff a couple of times, and there were parts of it that I didn't particularly love at first, but like on the second watch, I was like, all right, this is okay. And then the stuff, I mean, give me more Khazad-dûm, please. And then when it comes to the stuff in Linden, particularly anything like Gil-galad and Celebrimbor, I'm like, it's not hitting for me, that part in particular. But otherwise, fine. Solid.
Okay, cool.
Would you have rated it 60, what was it?
That feels a little low.
Yeah, what would actually... Yeah, that's a good question. What, out of like a 100, what would you guys give this episode?
I would probably give it closer to a 75 or something. I don't think it's like 60 in the 60s. I don't think this got a D, but I don't think it's quite the same as previous episodes.
Yeah, I probably would have given it a 70. It's like a C- for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, around that. So, yeah, maybe that isn't too far. The Rotten Tomatoes isn't too far off then.
Yeah, but Rotten Tomatoes gave it like a D, a solid D, not even a D+. That's so sad.
I don't know how they do their things.
Let's see. It says, going off the thermometer.
Okay.
Because I know it's supposed to be like tomato meter, but thermometer is so much better. It says 6.8 out of 10 was the average rating. So that's more like a 68%. And there were 13 total ratings. So not a lot of people rated this episode. So I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. 8 rated it fresh and 5 rated it rotten. So,
so we're not even getting a whole lot of reviews in.
Okay.
Yeah, because also this episode did come out just a few days ago.
Yeah.
So
did it? I've watched it 4 or 5 times.
I know, right? It is hard to.
Oh my goodness.
Like the amount of like analyzing and everything that we do, it is kind of like, what do you mean there aren't 1,000 reviews on this yet? You know, like
right.
Yeah.
Are we ready to get into the dirty details of the episode?
Yeah, I'm just not talking right now because I'm afraid I'm going to say more than I should.
Okay, so if you haven't watched the episode, go watch it now. I don't think any of us are saying this was the moment, this was the episode that made us go like, no, I don't want to watch the show anymore. So if you're
No,
still
I'll still
watching
watch it.
or still wondering, I think it's still worth a watch. All right, cool. I'm gonna start us off with the Harfoot plotline because of how thoroughly I enjoyed the traveling song.
Yes.
Lands far away, for I must now wander this wandering day. Away I must wander this wandering
The
day.
music of this is definitely one of the biggest highlights, as it should be, because it's Tolkien and he was all about the songs and the poetry. Poppy's song was amazing. I think it was the high point of the episode, much like Deeza's song last week. So I hope they keep leaning into, and Barry McCreary's doing a great job, so I hope they really keep leaning into the musicality of Middle Earth, because I think that's something that the films didn't embrace quite as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, that definitely feels like they have more opportunities. I mean, they should be taking more opportunities to do that because song is so key. I mean, we've seen like the elves kind of singing when they're kind of overcome by the beauty of Valinor, I guess. And then we've heard Disa sing. I would like to hear more dwarf singing. I mean, we did get to see Numenorians sing a little bit this episode
Yeah.
too.
That's true. They had their little drinking
That was good
song.
too.
So I love that they're sprinkling that in. Because it also really makes the world feel more lived in, I think. When, you know, they're just like singing and, you know, doing regular things. And
Yeah, it's just it's a part of their culture that we're seeing. And
Right.
also, like, on a character perspective, it's so beautiful that this is Poppy's mother's song. And we learned, I think it was the previous episode, we learned that her whole family died in the previous migration.
Right.
So it's really beautiful to see that, like, this is something that a way that she's able to still connect with her mom.
Yeah, I really thought Nori was going to be the Hobbit for me, but somehow Poppy has just stolen all my feels. All
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
Like the happiness
anything
and the
happens to
sadness
Poppy, we
and-
write.
Yeah.
I mean, Poppy's kind of the Sam of the season, you know? Like,
Yeah.
the way that she is the counterpart to Nori, but also she's very focused on, like, trying to keep her safe, and she's, I don't know, she's just so sweet, and she's been through a lot, and so I think that there's something special about her, and I hope we get to see more of her character, because it's really focusing on Nori and the stranger, I feel like, for a lot of this episode. So I hope we get to see more Poppy, like, maybe it's with Nori, maybe she gets a moment with the stranger. I don't know, but I'd like to get to know her a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the I feel bad calling him the stranger because
They need to give him a
Why
name.
I know, right?
Or the big fella.
Yeah.
The big folk or something. I don't know. But we see he's making progress on his language skills, but like really in really like cute ways. At the start of the episode, he's saying my great thumb, and Nori corrects him, no, migration. So like seeing those moments where they're like still connecting and she's teaching him, and this is why I'm kind of like annoyed with all of the who's Sauron talk.
Oh, yeah.
But this is why I don't think the stranger is going to be Sauron or even a Balrog or something evil.
Yeah.
Because you see him showing remorse when he finds out, like,
The fireflies.
he found, oh my God, like, you see him showing remorse for that. You see him showing remorse when he, snaps out of that trance later in the episode and realizes that he hurt Nori. And so I don't think he's an evil entity.
No, I don't think so either. I really feel like he's something new.
Yeah.
And I also think it would be like, I mean, it doesn't really make sense for him to be Sauron because it would be so bizarre for Sauron to be interacting with the hobbits in this way. A group of people that he, like, famously neglected to acknowledge in Lord of the Rings. So that's a no for me, dog. And, but I really like the dynamic between him and Nori in that she has been so, I mean, all of them really, they're really sheltered within their little bubble of Harfoots, right? And this is kind of like her first like literally big interaction with someone else, and it's interesting how I think that this is going to help her grow in some ways, but like there are parts where like she's obviously helping him, and when me and my husband were watching, and when he says I'm Peril, and Josh was like, this is like the Iron Giant. Like, yeah. And I was like, oh my god, it is.
Oh my gosh.
But then when she reaches out to him, like, she wants to help him, right? And I that's totally in her nature, as well as Poppy's, I think. But she's just thinking a little bit bigger. And she goes to help him, but I'm like, okay, ma'am, like, do not touch him when he's speaking some, like, language.
I was kind of like, all right, girl, that was your fault.
Yeah, I was like,
that's on you.
He didn't respond. Back away. Like, he clearly, once he's in that kind of vibe, he can't snap out of it until it's over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think that was all about? Him, after he gets hurt from I couldn't tell what that was, if it was like a warg, a warthog, or something.
They look like piggies, don't they?
They're wolves.
They call them
really
wolves.
awkward-looking wolves.
The creature they refer to as wolves, that's all we know.
After he gets hurt and he's trying to, like, I'm assuming he's, like, healing himself, but, like, his hand is covered in ice, like, and he's chanting, like, what's going on there?
I'm not convinced he's good. I'm not convinced he's bad.
I know.
I'm still convinced he's one of the Maiar, one way or another.
Right.
Yeah, or some original Maiar maybe. But like, yeah, no, when he when he smashes his hand into the ground, that's sort of our lesson for why wizards need staffs. So when they cast their magic, that that they need like a vessel to channel it through, or else they can harm themselves like that. So yeah, I think he is healing himself. It's a little like not clear how, because it looks like he's hurting himself, and that's why Nori grabs him. Because it does. I don't know. I thought people were going to lose some hands or arms or something in here.
I thought her hand was going to snap off.
I thought her hand was going to snap, like for freeze and snap, and that would have been really terrible. So,
oh my god, terrible! Yeah.
But I don't know. We see some very, like, we go from fire magic to ice magic somehow, which is I don't know. I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
it makes me think less Balrog, at least.
Yeah, I mean,
I just think about the Robert Frost poem. The whole Robert Frost poem. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice.
I could see them being inspired by that.
That's why I'm still not convinced he's good. I know we want him to be, but I'm not convinced.
I just don't know. Because I felt so bad, because there's that great moment where he saves everyone from the wolves. And you're like, oh my god, this is like the big breakthrough moment for him. And then it's almost immediately followed by him accidentally hurting Nori, and Nori being afraid of him. Yeah. And then it's like, oh my god, like two steps forward, one step back. And it's like, oh, I thought we were like making a breakthrough with like who this person is, but then we see that it's still not quite there yet. So yeah, just like a lot of mystery still surrounding him.
And we have the cultists of Sauron tracking him as well.
Yes, they found the impact site of the meteor, and we have it's not a named character, and we only see them for like 30 seconds, but it's I don't know, I've been referring to him as Welcome to the Black Parade Kid. He's just like
shady.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the constellation that the stranger is looking for, but it kind of looked like that was a constellation on their, like, the back of their shield thing,
mirror thing.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I think, and we've also heard that, like, from what's his stupid name, Waldreg. Sorry,
yeah,
he's the worst. But
yeah,
he was just like thought that the meteor had something to do with the coming of Sauron, and it's like I just keep thinking about that, because I don't think that the meteor man is him. Like, I don't think the stranger necessarily has anything to do with him, but I think it might be a signal to people. Like, I don't know what Sauron said about his return to people. Like, I don't know how they got that idea, but it just makes me think about, I think a big part of this show is thinking about how myths happen, because we see that with the humans in the Southlands and like the story they tell about themselves versus how the elves see them. And then we also see like the way we've already seen that with Farazan and like the way that they talk about the past of Numenor and how it's like not quite accurate, right? And so it just makes me think about how, and like the whole story itself really is them playing with a text that isn't quite filled in, and then they're kind of expanding upon it, which I think a lot of mythologies do. Like you have different authors telling similar stories about same characters, but they're all different depending on what they're trying to convey, right? And so when it comes to within this story with the cultists, I think that there's got to be some kind of a similar narrative going on between what's happening with the men of the Southlands and then whatever they think the meteor means. But I don't think that Meteor Man has any idea that it may be tied to some evil prophecy, you know?
Yeah. I just don't, I think this random character who they dropped in, we saw some pictures of him, that I think were released earlier. But this is the first time we're seeing him in the show. And I think we were led to believe, or it was like implied or hinted at that this is going to be Sauron. And then everyone's like, well, wait a minute. Nothing says that this is actually Sauron. So there's still, again, this is kind of why I'm like, guys, the entire point of this show isn't to find out who Sauron is,
right.
You know?
Sauron has literally become the Mephisto of Rings of Power, except unlike WandaVision, we know we're actually going to see Sauron. We have to see Sauron at some point. He's central to the plot, but I feel like it's just flashbacks to everyone theorizing, oh, is this character Mephisto in WandaVision? Is this character Mephisto in WandaVision? We're doing it with Sauron now.
Yeah. That's so true. I think that, like, I understand wanting to know who Sauron is, but at the same time, I don't think that we have seen him. I think that's been a lot of red herrings. I think that Sauron is going to be his own kind of reveal. But I do just want I hope that people also like sure, like we can theorize all we want and chat about it for hours until like our faces turn blue, but at the end of the day, like I do hope that as a viewer you're kind of just, there is a part of you that should just be along for the ride. Otherwise I think it takes some of the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
At least personally. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where we leave the Harfoots this episode. Where do you guys want to jump next? What are you eager to talk about?
Well, since we talked about Sauron, maybe to the Southlands.
The Southlands, okay.
where Baldric has that really hilarious interaction with Adar.
Oh my
gosh. Which is what we were all thinking in our brains
he's
anyway.
The worst.
Where he's like, I'll serve you Sauron.
I
saw someone use that as a meme of like, every Rings of Power fan is like, you are Sauron, right? Like, are you Sauron?
I love that they keep doing this. Like, Arondir did it with Adar, and now Waldreg, where they're like asking the question that we're all like, why do they call you
Who
Dad?
are you?
And then like,
Yeah.
you're Sauron, right? And then Adar's like, doesn't even like, he gets angry, but I also feel like he was probably gonna just do that anyway. When I think about it, because he moved towards the kid. I can't remember the kid's name, but he moved towards the kid before he had even said that.
Doesn't matter what his name is now.
No,
It doesn't matter now. Rowan is gone.
He did. I thought that was really interesting. They chose to cut away from that, but there have also been a lot of other really violent moments that they show, like, full force.
The warg scene was pretty gnarly, like, previously. So I was surprised, too.
Yeah, but kind of, I feel like a trait of like cinematic adaptations of Tolkien is that you never really see the good guys getting hurt. Like they get little nicks here and there, little bruises, but you cut away when the good guys like are getting unalived, right?
Yeah.
Like you mostly cut away. I'm thinking of like when the warg gets the I forgot his name, one of the Rohirrim and Two Towers.
Oh yeah.
Versus like the orcs, you see them unaliving all the time. I'm not on TikTok right now. I can say dying. You see them dying all the time.
I was going to say, isn't that like so like what a weird thing in our colloquialisms of like different parts of the internet.
Yeah.
things that, like, if you told your past self this, they would be like,
No.
what is wrong with you? Why are you talking like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we see like half of the village of the Southlanders go to Sauron to give in so that they don't die. Maybe, and I say this really lightly, maybe I haven't been giving Theo enough credit because
I
he
get it.
stayed behind, and it wasn't like, oh, he snuck in the back of the crowd. Waldreg looked directly at him and said, come on, Theo. He had the opportunity to turn and go with them, and he also showed Arondir the
I know
blade thing.
I really appreciated that so much. I'm like, good for
Which
you,
I
kid.
was really surprised about. So I'm like, maybe he's not. I've like this entire time I'm like, oh yeah, he's Witch King. He's gonna be evil for sure. But now I'm like, I don't know. We're seeing him taking active choices to not go dark.
Versus we see in that a moment where Bronwyn is forced to choose between her son living or possibly dying. She was almost immediately ready to go
Yeah.
change sides.
I'm worried
see-
about her.
Yeah, we see like a flip there where a few moments ago she was rallying the troops, right? And then as soon as she learns about the sword or realizes that the sword is with Theo, she's like, the only option I can think of is to, do the swearing fealty thing. Whereas Theo has the conversation with Arondir about like preparing for battle, So yeah, Callie, I agree. I
Very
echo the
worried about
sentiment of being worried.
Yeah.
I support women's rights, but I also support women's
women's
wrongs. Whatever she does, she's my ride or die. I don't care.
But I wonder, like, so they show her sort of, in my view, when she was taking lead, becoming not a queen of her people, but she does say, I'm not the king you were waiting for, but I am, some along those lines.
She's like, but I am now.
And I'm like,
Close
oh, no,
enough.
but,
Bow
like,
down.
And we know the Nazgul are all kings and leaders and, kings, queens, and leaders. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is she going to go dark? Is that going to be like her story? I don't know now.
I've been on board with that theory for months now, and I know people are also theorizing. We're not getting to Numenor yet, but people are also theorizing that Arian could end up being a Nazgul. So we might see a lady Nazgul. I don't know who.
Woo! This is what representation means.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting to think
gosh.
about how quick she was to make that switch when she was the one trying to rally people.
And in a moment, I've spoken about this in previous episodes, that I don't feel any sort of love between Bronwyn and Theo. I don't, like, there's not, like, watching, like, if you were to just show, like, a few random interactions to someone, I don't think they would know that they're supposed to be mother and son.
Yeah.
And so I don't, like, do I believe that a mother would want to protect her son? Yes. But I'm not believing it. I'm not feeling it from them.
Yeah,
I disagree.
really.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And, like, I do want to say this caveat that, like, I still think Bronwyn's a great character, and I still think, I don't know, this is just, Andy, I thought it was so funny that you were saying that, like, the Southlanders is who I could watch, like, a whole episode of. This is the plotline that when we jump to, I don't really care about.
Interesting.
I'm going to say it. There we go. I like the characters. Don't get me wrong. Arondir, he's great. Bronwyn, she's great. Theo
Fine.
is there. But this part of the plot, I'm just kind of, I just don't feel any sort of connection. So I'm like, I don't necessarily care what happens to these people.
Even though they're closest to, like, well, they're in the Southlands, which will become Mordor, and I feel like they're maybe going to be they're very tied to Sauron and his success. So now that they're ramping up, I think I'm more interested in them now.
Kind of touching back on the mother-son relationship. Yeah, it's maybe not the warm, fuzzy relationships we're used to seeing on screen, but to me, it's a very realistic portrayal of a woman with a teenage son who misbehaves and does not listen to her a lot, and kind of dealing with that unruly teenager that you still love and you're trying to relate to, but he's, you're pulling in opposite directions.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about how when Arondir was like, I'm going east to figure out what the hell is wrong with that cow, and then she's like, I'm coming with you, and I was like, oh, what about your kid. Okay.
Yeah,
old
she
enough to
kind of
watch himself.
didn't really.
I
yeah.
guess, but I was like, stressful. And then at the same time, though, when that orc was in their house, I mean, she didn't run when Theo told her to. She stayed behind and made sure that orc did not, do anything else to her kid, So,
Yeah, we're not given his exact age, but the actor's 16. So we should,
I think
guess
in
the
this
kid's about
episode,
15, 16.
in this episode, I think Arondir says that he's 14 because
he
he
said
says,
14?
You're correct.
because he said, which I really enjoyed that scene.
too.
First of all, I was kind of laughing because I'm like, all right, Theo's getting to know his new dad.
Yeah. Finally,
But, like,
actually.
Yeah, but it was a nice little moment of Arondir like teaching him and like bonding with him. And he says like, I commend you, it's taken me 200 years to have enough bravery to be standing here with you all, and you have that much bravery at 14 years.
Right. Yeah, I really love that scene. See, this is why I do really like the Southlands, because I feel like the writing here, like the dialogue between the characters is more on point. It feels much more believable to me than some of the like stuff that happens in Linden, for example. But I loved the archery lesson. I loved that Theo, even when he was like, but half left, and Arondir was like, but half stayed, including you, buddy. I mean, I just thought that was so sweet, and that's kind of the tipping point for Theo to show Arondir the sword. And what totally threw me for a loop is that I thought that tower was elvish at first. Like, the tippity top, it's very, like, flowy. We've got a creepy statue and, Bronwyn talking about how this is, that they can turn it into a symbol of their strength and instead of their, I can't remember what the word was, but basically, like, showing, like, flipping the script on men. From what this tower used to be, and I'm like, who is the creepy statue of? Why was it a Sauron worshipping center? And that was his sword that was in that statue?
I thought we were going to have a sword in the stone kind of a moment. Like, I thought Theo was
Like,
going to go over and
to
put the top and then take the full blade out, and yeah, I don't know what that's about. And also the fact that whole, like, evil shrine was there the whole time, and Arondir is like, wait a minute, and just, like, move some leaves around. I'm like, seriously, you guys have been here for weeks, and you have so many villagers. Not one person was like, hey, what's this, like, open area over here,
And I thought this was the outpost that the elves were using. Am I wrong?
I did too, but I guess not.
Like, they've been watching that tower for a very long time.
And so it makes me think that the elves just let the weeds, like, grow over it so they don't have to look at it. They're like, nah, gross. And I'm like, but like, the person that's holding the sword that Theo has, like, in the statue, I'm like, you can't really see what they look like, right? It's like, it's like hooded.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think about that. All that sword being a key to, like, where, or what, or or metaphorical key, or I'm waiting to see. I'm reserving judgment until I see.
And
where
why
they
does
go with
Adar want it so bad?
I heard someone say it could be the key to making the Rodruin erupt, but I don't know how that would work. Yeah. There have been a lot of crazy theories floating around my head.
For the listeners at home, and definitely not the host, what is that that you just mentioned? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's gonna be our future forge for the One Ring.
Got it, yeah.
I think that sucker's gonna blow at some point, based on, like, imagery that we've seen. But yeah, I mean, whole moment with Adar before this, he's, like, chilling with his orc buddy, and they're, like, talking about the sun, and Adar says that he's going to miss its warmth. Like, and
I'm like, you don't have
what is Adar planning to do to himself? Like,
I don't know.
I just want to be like, sir.
Well, isn't it because when they're going to terraform Mordor to be dark all the time for the orcs?
I mean, like, yeah. I guess so. I guess I thought that he was going to do something more, like, metaphysical to himself. I mean, he has alluded to trying to want to be a god.
Yes.
So I guess I was maybe leaning a little bit too much into my Harry Potter days of, like, get into a cauldron do some magic
Well,
on their
also-
body.
I was getting
Pop back out.
some Harry Potter vibes in that scene where he says, "Show me your arm," because that's big.
Yeah.
How many times did Voldemort say that to like Peter Pettigrew or Snape or someone to see the dark
Oh my
mark?
god, so
like,
true. And he just like wanted to burn his friend. I'm like, that's a little
yeah,
rude.
he's like,
Yeah, I didn't get that.
interesting.
I'm like, you
He's
know what
it's-
happens. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
that you know.
Yeah, it's incongruent as a Lord Father compared to the mercy and the love he showed in the previous episode.
Yeah, where he put that one out of his
Trigger.
misery. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of
I think
strange. Gives him layers,
Clearly,
though.
he's an abusive father
I was
figure
gonna
to
say
them.
it's an
Yeah,
abusive
a toxic, manipulative one.
Yeah, maybe not the kind of dad you should model yourself after.
Got it.
Yeah. Also, side note, ever since he was adar has reminded me of something or someone, and I couldn't put my finger on it, and I finally did after someone tweeted a gif about it. Adar reminds me of Noel Fielding. He is one of the hosts on Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
The one with the long hair.
Yes.
And also for the oldies on the internet, for those that don't know, Noel Fielding was Old Greg.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and the Mighty Boosh.
What
yeah.
a time.
Yeah.
Those are some obscure
anyway.
references right there.
Yeah.
But can I also just say, speaking of references, when they enter that forest with the Harfoots, and Poppy said, "What madness made them go this way?" I was like, "All right, Gimli, I hear you." Like, what madness drove me there about when they entered Fangor, and I was like, "I see you there with your madness reference." Can we? And then before we leave the Harfoots too soon, I did forget that I wanted to talk about this, but that
Yeah, please.
the direction they're going, I've been kind of seeing conflicting reports about, like, because I feel like the shots of the map were to kind of show where they were going were a little confusing, because there were definitely things that aren't, like, on my version of Middle-earth map. But it definitely seems like if they're not headed towards, like, dead marshes type of area, I mean, it won't be a marsh now. But I was also thinking that it could also be Ithilien, because they talk about a grove. And then Ithilien is considered the Garden of Gondor later. So it could be that. It could be closer to the Brownlands, which I'm just kind of hoping that whatever grove it is has Entwives.
Yes.
The end wives.
This goes all the way back to episode 1. It was something that I didn't mention because obviously there were so many other things to talk about in episode 1. But when we see the comet flying through the air, there's a shot of the Ents react
And a baby
of, like,
one!
moving
Yes.
through.
And an entling.
Like, I the Ents are one of my, like, top favorite parts of Lord of
And
the
when I
Rings.
say
So-
this, and I'm hoping that I'm right, because you can't just give us 5 seconds of Ent in this show.
and then just not touch on it. Yeah.
That would just be rude.
We want
So-
Ents.
And also, I think it's gonna be I also think it's gonna be another one of those things where, like, they're building a world that you fall in love with. The Entwives, I think, could be a very big part of it.
See it destroyed.
Yeah.
And just yeet.
I know.
Destruction. Oh, you liked this? Nope. It's gone.
Too bad.
I could see them
Yeah,
doing
I
it
feel
for
like-
that. Yeah.
That's my biggest piece of advice for anyone watching Rings of Power is don't get too overly attached to anyone that they're introducing in the Second Age, because the only two we
they're all
know
dead.
make it to the Third Age are Elrond and Galadriel, and
Yeah.
Celeborn should exist somewhere.
Somewhere. He's again.
somewhere.
I mean, we know Elendil and
Galadriel
Isildur
and
make it.
Celeborn right now are in an open
most of it.
relationship, and Celeborn is sitting at home, happily married, and his wife is traversing the land, and he's just
No,
like
because
drinking tea. That's what's happening.
She had a line in this episode when she has like the heart to heart with Halbrand, and this is totally skipping to Numenor. Sorry.
I was gonna say, do we want to jump? Yeah, do we want
On
to
to
jump to
Numenor.
Numenor then?
Yeah, onto Numenor.
Woo!
She has a line when she's talking with Halbrand saying that her obsession with Sauron and everything has damaged all her relationships in her life. And I know they had kind of been talking about like the elves of Lindon and Elrond and whatnot. But I was like, what if that's
Includes
her
Celeborn?
husband too? What if they're
Celeborn, they're currently like in a separation.
well, because they actually did. They lived together and they lived apart throughout their marriage during times.
I
And
get
it's
it.
because they're off doing different things. So I'll be really interested if maybe she is married. Maybe we are going to see him in the series, but just not season 1.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
I think I've seen that he is a character like planned for the show and that they've casted someone for him. I don't know, but I think I've seen that Celeborn is a character in the show for a future season. So,
well, I would have to see if Celebrian's going to be there too. I want to see Galadriel as a mother.
I know, but I also don't want to see Elrond fall in love with a baby.
Hopefully she's at least like 20-ish.
Yeah, she just like sneaks in there.
But
I know. That's why the elven stuff, it gets tricky.
Yeah.
You can't think about it too hard.
No, I know.
Don't think about it.
The elves are like the royal family. Just don't think about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to harp too much on Halbrand, but
You're allowed.
I mean, the opening shot of him stoking the flames and blacksmithing, and it's in slow-mo. Are you kidding me?
They know.
Knew what they were doing.
There are multiple
Listen.
times where it's like, okay, guys, like, there's stuff with Elrond and stuff too, so it's like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
They know what they're doing. But you can harp all you want on Halbrand as long as I get to talk about Elendil.
Oh my god, I'm in love with him.
Because, whew.
He's showing some tough love. So Isildur going over to him and saying, "Put me at the front of the line," and him being like, "Do you have any qualifications?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, Isildur,
no nepotism.
You're being a little right now, okay?
Yeah.
Like, let's maybe think about your place in all of this and just calm down. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? You're not going to single-handedly save everyone
But I
on
also love
Earth,
it because
you know?
it's like he just f***ed up so bad by getting him and his friends kicked out of the Sea Guard, and it's like, and now you want me to reward you with a trip to Middle-earth that you're like begging me for? No!
Yeah.
Like,
And I like that his friend put him in his place too. When he asked his friend to sneak him on, and he was like, "Look, man, I love you, but I'm not going to put my reputation on it." And that was tough love, man. But that was
good though, because I love that he was like, "Hey, you're maybe my best friend," and then their other friend was like, "Hey,
Excuse me? Yeah.
But like,
and he's like,
yeah.
When he goes to find them and his friend, the one who gets promoted to, they say in the show, they say lieutenant, but
it's very Downton Abbey.
In American, it's
British
lieutenant.
And Canadians, we say lieutenant still.
I was like, Downton Abbey vibes all the way.
Anyway, that friend is Valendil.
Yeah.
My previous guest pointed out is the name of one of Isildur's sons.
Yes.
So now that he's been promoted to lieutenant, we are 5,000% going to see him die a painful death.
Oh yeah. Probably saving Isildur or doing something courageous.
Isildur, gosh. And so he goes, and Valendil is immediately like, "No, I know what he's not here to apologize. He's here to ask me to put him on the boat." And then there's this long pause and he's like, "But can you?" And I'm like, and then he says like, "No, I did apologize." And I'm like, "No, you didn't. The words 'I'm sorry' did not come out of your mouth at all."
Not once.
This is the part where like I would have been the friend. I'm like, "Oh, you apologized for what? For what? I need to hear exactly what you're like," because I know I've noticed this thing with guys. Sometimes they'll just say "I'm sorry" because they know you want to hear it, and it's like, okay, let's exactly what are you sorry for in this instance? I don't want you to be sorry that I'm mad. I want you to be sorry for what the thing that you did.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's like a kindergarten worksheet of like explaining step by step, like, this is how you should apologize. You don't apologize that like, "I'm sorry I made you upset." Mm-hmm. You apologize for your actions, and like, what were those actions? "I'm sorry I kicked you off the Sea Guard." Mm-hmm. Okay, but what else is there to that? "I'm sorry that I didn't take your commitment to this seriously," is what it gets down to. Mm-hmm. Which he says, "Isildur, I hope one day you find something that you care so much about that you would sacrifice anything
and
for."
I was
like, I was like, that's a bit too
anything though. Like,
do we want to maybe rethink that statement?
I was like, that was like pretty extreme. I thought we were just talking about career stuff. Like, I wouldn't sacrifice a lot of it, like for my career. Have you ever heard of work-life balance, Valendia? Like,
That too, but I was just like,
no.
well, he is gonna find something like that one day. Don't you worry.
I know. I was like, sometimes they do things, and I'm like, guys, like, seriously?
It's a bit too on the nose with the writing there, I think.
It's nuts.
My biggest issue with the writing, since we're talking about the writing now, is that I feel like they stay in scenes just a little too long. And that this is a screenwriting thing where you don't want to stay in a scene longer than it needs to be. So you always check your beginning and your end. Can I start this later? Can I get out of this sooner? And one scene in particular that I really noticed it with, even though I loved the idea of it and I loved it in general, was when Galadriel was training with the Númenórean soldiers. And I was like, it's great. I love that she's a badass. We know she's a badass. I feel like they could have cut that scene down quite a bit.
Yeah, I will say, like, this episode was, I think it was 112. It was 1 hour and 12 minutes. And all of the episodes have been a little bit over an hour, and I thought that was supposed to be just the exception for the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But it's looking like it's every episode, and they really need to, like an hour-long episode is a pretty good pacing thing. Yeah. And so I really wish that's what they would figure out how to get down to.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think that but that's one thing about TV is that it's like especially when you have like a big planned arc like this, I can't really think of any show where I'm like, there's shows that I've liked in the first season, but I feel like they always get better by season 2, season 3.
Yeah.
Right. I would agree with that.
So it's like,
first seasons are hard because there's so much setting up.
So hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's like, we're kind of watching them learn as they go. I'm interested to see what they take from this for the second season. But yeah, I agree that like stuff like that could have been cut down, and like, I don't know, it's interesting how because in Númenor we have a bunch of different things happening all at once. Like there's the stuff with Isildur and Elendil and like Isildur's friends, and then there's also the stuff between Galadriel and Halbrand, and then we have also got Farazan, Eärien, and Kemen? What?
Kemen.
Yeah, Kemen.
I always want to call him Kevin.
Same.
He looks like a Kevin.
We need to talk about Kevin. Yeah. He's definitely becoming more of a little whereas in the previous episode, I was like, oh, he's really smooth. Like, that was a great pickup line. Like, that worked great. But now he's burning boats.
Yeah, that was messed up.
Like,
acting out majorly.
Yeah, not good. And we were doing a watch party in a like watch along for this episode in our Discord server, and Christina pointed out, if you're listening, that she was like, why it surprises me that Eärien would be against the war. And I said, I think she's just worried for her father and her brother. I think that's her motivation right there.
I still think because we see, and I got this from Lee, who apparently read it somewhere, so I need to go back and read all the like old Vanity Fair articles and stuff. Apparently Eärien does end up being one of the Kingsmen instead of one of the faithful. So she's one of the like anti-elf isolationist people.
Yeah, but I think the way that she's coming at it though is that like, why, at least in the situation that they're giving her, is like, why risk Númenor's safety over this?
Yeah. It's not that I don't get it. It's that I haven't had enough time to care about her or give a crap about her and her plot line.
I agree.
For her to end up being an antagonist.
Yeah.
Or like on the opposite side
like they've started to give us stuff with her and Elendil and Isildur. You know, Isildur's obviously going to her for advice a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's always, her character, we haven't gotten to just see her really do her thing. It's like Kemen and with Isildur.
She's defined by the men around her. That's the problem.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with her. Like, I really wish that we had gotten a moment of, like, her doing her apprenticeship thing or, you know, whatever before she started.
I think we will see that later, and we will wish we didn't see it.
Well, I want to see it, like, without reference to, like, I want to understand her passions and, like, what she cares about and not necessarily using her to get to know Isildur better, which I think is what's happened.
Yeah.
And so when this shift is happening, I'm almost kind of like, whatever. Like, because I don't know her very well. Like, I don't know what her relationship was like, and I don't think they've really talked that much about what it means to be a faithful or whatever. You know, what it means to be part of like a Lendil's camp.
Yeah,
and I think that would be helpful in a lot of ways, because we know how much it's going to change things. I mean, because we're already seeing, like, Farazan laying a stick in the ground where he's like, yeah, I want to do this because I want to colonize. Like, I want to, like, manipulate this whole situation, get resources. I'm like, okay,
Yikes.
doing the bad guy thing. Great job. You know, like, it's pretty clear that he's a little stinker, but...
Yeah.
When I was, like, going through all the characters with my mom, she was like, yeah, I don't, like, the hair, I don't like him.
Oh, interesting, because I have said I think he has the best hair in the entire show.
Yeah.
His hair,
It's
like his
very
hair and
luscious.
beard combo, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely gives a specific vibe, right?
Oh, it's for sure, like, almost like Jafar
Yeah.
villain vibes, you know?
I would-
Like,
I would even compare it to a lion, right? Like
Scar.
ooh.
yeah, or just he's
We're going with,
he's
Disney
a
villains.
predator. He's prideful. He's you
Yeah.
know he thinks very highly of himself.
That's for sure, yeah. And then we also have Muriel. I'm so fascinated by her character now, because we have a moment of her talking to her father, and she's very excited to tell him, we're going to go fight this war. And he says, don't go to Middle Earth. And we don't really see any more of that. Maybe we'll see more of that playing out in the future episodes on their journey, or like as they get there and things are going wrong. But there's a moment where after the ships are burned, Galadriel says, we have, and we have your father's blessing.
I know.
And I'm really surprised that she didn't like,
Go, well.
yeah, or we didn't really see much of a reaction from that, of her being like internally doubting it, but like she is still fully planning to go forth with this mission. So like I found that just, I don't know, really interesting, of like I think there's a lot more to uncover of her, what's going on with her as a leader and her like relationship as a daughter to him,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that like makes this show in its current state a little, like, there's so much going on and there's so much that I would love to know about, but like, are we gonna get more Muriel time? Because I love her and I think she's so complex and interesting, but she's always just kind of like, she's got to be in a scene with Galadriel. I mean, she had her scene with her dad, which is good, but it's like I just need to get to know these people a little bit more.
I think we're going to see her leading
I
a
would
lot
agree with
more
that.
once they get into Middle Earth.
Which I'm excited for. My thing with Muriel is like, I love her character and I think I know what they're doing with her character, but I realize I'm coming at it as someone who knows the lore like pretty damn well. So I don't think they're fully communicating the depth of her character to casual viewers yet. And I'm looking forward to
I know nothing about Numenor's plot line or anything. Obviously I know it like, gets wrecked.
Right.
But I know nothing about it other than what I've seen in the show so far, basically. So I think the fact that like I'm still finding her character interesting, but I'm also like, there's clearly some other stuff going on underneath.
Yeah, I think she's definitely playing a role right now.
Yeah.
That she's expected to play.
Yeah. I loved all of the moments in this episode where she's like, yeah, and Lord Halbrand will be there, right? And Halbrand's like, what? And she's like, yeah, Galadriel said you were going to be there. And he's like, let's go have a chat. Like, let's go have a really tense chat where we actually should just be making out, but we're not going to do that.
I know, their chemistry is like serious. And it's funny because like, I don't know. There are some times where they're talking to each other and I'm like, meh. Like the part where she was like, some might say you manipulated me. And I was like, Galadriel, that's kind of gross. Like, why did you do that? But then when they finally are getting to the heart of the issue where they're like, what is your deal? It's like very like rom-com moment where they like finally reveal their feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
That scene, everyone was acting their ass off and I loved it. That was a good one.
Yeah, where they were arguing about like their motivations and stuff. Yeah.
You know, my favorite thing about the Numenor this week, and this is just because I'm petty as all hell, when Galadriel's boarding the ship and we finally get her in her armor looking all...
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, so let me get this straight. My girl came to Numenor with nothing, and now she's in her full armor, which means it's Numenorian armor, which means everyone who criticized the armor in the posters saying it did not look elven, it's because it was never
It's
elven to
not
begin
elven.
with. It is almost like
So true.
they kind of actually know what they're doing.
But at the same time, I was like, it doesn't look like anybody else's armor in Numenor. Like, and she's got a star on it. I'm
yeah,
almost...
but it could
Maybe
just
she
be
had
like-
some design choices.
I'm almost
She-
wondering, like, I hope that they talk about it, because one thing that I think is sad for me about the show is that a big part of the Second Age is, like, everybody having a great time. Like, you know, the elves flourishing in Middle-earth, and then Numenor being, like, this beacon of humanity, you know, like, their craft and their knowledge is growing and is amazing. And we're already, like, kind of cutting to, like, everything kind of in decline, and so we don't really get to see the friendship between Numenor and the elves, which I'm kind of sad about, but I wonder... Is this, like, an heirloom? Like, maybe this piece of armor is...
Maybe, it
like,
could be.
Elendil
Yeah,
had
could
it
be.
back over in the Faithful camp, like,
It's like,
chilling.
wow, I've just been waiting for an elf with exactly your measurements to show up. Like,
I feel like they would have had to like make something for her. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
then
don't know
then that
either.
makes me think, like, how long did they have to make this huge, like, this insane set of armor? I'm confused
I mean,
about the
but look how many
timeline.
blacksmiths they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the timeline goes back to my biggest criticism of the show is like, because everyone's trying to say, oh, it's the writing, it's the pacing, the writing's the problem. It's not necessarily the writing that's the problem, it's the editing that's the problem. There's like not a lot of consistency with the editing, and that's why we're struggling to figure out what the timeline is.
Yeah.
And also everything kind of feels like it's going long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think if I were to make Rings of Power, I probably would have approached it slightly differently and only covered like this episode. I would have covered Numenor and
Yeah.
the
Like, a little
Southlands.
less.
yeah.
And I covered a little less. You can spend a little longer with each group of characters.
Totally.
So it feels like a more meaty, you know, piece of story every time you're visiting that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of meat, should we go to
Yes.
elves, the elven dwarven side of the story?
Durin continues to be a darling of the show.
Yeah. More dwarves, please.
That dinner scene when he was talking about the table and like how sacred it is to the, I was like, he's 100% trolling them. And sure enough, and then someone tweeted a map of Lindon to Kazan and is like, they have to carry
They
that
schlepped that
table,
table.
600 miles.
But Doran makes sure to be like, because when Elrond was like looking upset, and Doran was like, "It's not that heavy, like it's not that big a deal," and then he's like, but then Elrond is like, "Oh, I have a different burden or whatever." But like they call out how heavy the table is.
What a great, just so
They're
great. Oh
I
my
feel
God.
like the writers really understand the dwarves. Like it's good.
They I think they really do. The dwarven stuff is just really sticking out and shining for me.
Yeah.
Speaking of shiny things too,
Oh no.
Well,
let's talk about my moment of absolute genius where I sort of predicted this from the beginning, because when I posted a TikTok with all of the different clips of me saying, "Oh, I really hope that thing in the box is a Silmaril." And it really bothers me that Maglor's Silmaril is just like in the ocean. And I'm like, how do you know that it didn't wash up on shore
and
somewhere?
end up in a
how
tree
do you know it didn't get
on the top of a
it
mountain.
didn't end
In
up
a
in a tree? I will say I think somehow this idea that like, oh yeah, the remains of the Silmaril are in this mountain, I think somehow I have to say, I don't believe a word that Gil-galad or Celebrimbor
I
is saying.
know.
Everything is a massive manipulation on their
why
part.
are they
bad.
so
It's
shady?
so
Oh
bad.
my gosh.
And
Why is Gil-galad so shady?
Oh my
but
gosh.
the fact that what really, I mean, Elrond's doing the most here with the elves because he sticks to his oath, because I was going to be really pissed if they make him break it. Like, Elrond understands the power of an oath, like, and so I love that he was honest with Durin, but what's going on with, like, Celebrimbor and Gil-galad is really, like, it's not hitting for me. So, I think it's important to note that Elrond calls that legend apocryphal, and basically meaning it's not considered true or genuine. So, thank God. But the whole, like the mechanics of it, like a tree. Okay, so there's a jewel in a tree, and then the lightning hits it, and then somehow that imbues it into the tree's root,
into the mountain.
I mean, I'm like, there's a lot of
maybe Arundel's flying through the sky, and then oops, he dropped it.
And it's just,
we would have bigger issues then.
Yeah.
And then we have the whole thing with, like, the idea that the Mithril can save them. I mean,
that I'm so confused about this entire. It's something that, like, I was confused about watching Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. I was like, so why are they dying? What's the whole point of all of this? I was like, so is Arwen's life essence in that necklace that she gave Aragorn?
No.
I was
that was totally a movie thing.
I was so confused. I know, that's why I was, because I read the books first and then I watched the movies for the podcast. I was like, I don't get it. What's happening with so again here with the show where they're like, yeah, the elves are dying, and it's up to the, you know, a bit of, you know, dramatic irony too, that, like, it's up to the dwarves to quote unquote save them.
We see in the Third Age, and they hit this a lot more in the film, I feel like, that the kind of the grace of the elves are leaving Middle Earth because of the growing evil. And Elrond makes a point of saying that Arwen will not, if Sauron makes a full return to power, that Arwen will not survive the presence of the evil world. So I guess they're kind of going off of that connection, that the light of the Eldar can be diminished if there's great evil present. And the Sauron we're getting here is, you know, he's going to be 10 times stronger than the Sauron we see in the Third Age.
It's just, like, I don't think...
But then how did they get through the First War? I
just don't think they're doing a good job of, like, explaining the connection between, like, how they're logically thinking through Eldar fading, Mithril need to bathe in, also darkness marching over the face of the earth. So it's like, it goes, like, with Gil-galad, it goes from, hey, we need this so we don't die, and then when Elrond is still like, hey, like, my soul is bound to this oath, like, I'm not fucking with that, and then Gil-galad ups it to, if the elves abandon Middle Earth now, the armies of darkness will march over the face of the earth, and it will be the end of not just our people, but all peoples. And I'm like, you're just pulling out of your ass now, dude. Like, it's just, you're not, the logical leaps you're making.
They think really highly of themselves, that they're like, if we're not involved, everyone is going to die. And maybe that could be true, but I don't know.
I feel like I kind of hate, other than Arandir, whom I love with all my heart, I kind of hate the elves right now. Mostly the Linden elves, like, they're kind of making them, they're really shady, and I'm not getting good vibes from them.
And it makes me sad because should be.
We should be.
I mean, they've always been the elves, like, let's not get it twisted. Elves have always kind of been jerks.
And maybe that's what they're trying to lean into, but I just think that, like, I should like them a little more than I do. And it's just, it also bothers me that, like, Celebrimbor obviously knows about Mithril and, like, has some, talking about how he's tested it. And I'm like, well, how did you get that? Like,
didn't he test Elrond's sample?
But he
wasn't supposed to show that to anyone. That was a part of the oath.
True.
Don't know what they're doing.
And also the editing is confusing there, because it's like, where did that piece of Mithril come from? It was just suddenly in your hand. And if they are trying to imply that it's the one that Elrond had, then he did break the oath, because he swore on pain of death to not show it to anybody. Like,
or the pain of sadness upon his family.
Like, lots of pain.
Yeah, the editing there is hurting us, I think, because you're right. Like, you can't make a big deal out of an oath and then just really casually or off screen break it.
Yeah.
break it the next episode.
Yeah.
Very unsatisfying.
And just the idea of
Like that should have been a longer arc playing out.
and just like the whole idea of he's like, yeah, nothing diminishes its light. I'm gonna saturate every elf in it. I'm like, what is happening? I just wrote in my notes like, what the, because I just whatever they've just made up for this part, the math ain't mathin' for me. And it makes that part so hard to watch. Even though I love Elrond and Durin and Disa, I'm like, just take me back to Castle Doom. Just take me back.
Yeah, let's just go back to them singing and having dinner and the dwarven children like giggling in the background.
When are we gonna see the kids?
I would like to see the dwarven
I think they're just gonna be off screen.
Yeah, I think we're never.
Unfortunately.
Like,
but I
running around off screen.
I would love to see just like kids, but with like
beards.
full like prosthetic beards on them.
It's like really hairy kids.
Oh my god, love it. Oh, and also, I really hated that when Elrond was talking to Celebrimbor and was like, so you also lied to me. Celebrimbor, instead of like addressing the situation, he's like, I was there the day your dad abandoned you. And
it was so gaslighting.
And the dad guilt tripping.
Awful. Also, the way that it was really fun for me, it is fun. There are some moments in the show where I'm like, I know what happened there. And the show makes it sound like Arundel's just like up and left the whole family behind when like, no, your mom also went. Oh, speaking of his mom, I love that Durin said, go pack your feathery shirts.
Yes. Me mom's a bird and me dad's a star.
The fact that he noticed
the feathery
Elrond's
shoulder pads. Yeah.
Yes.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, we just talked for an hour straight about so many things. Were there any like random thoughts that you guys wanted to share or something? Callie, I feel like the three of us were just speaking and talking and you were just so gracefully listening. Do you have anything that you want to jump in and add?
No, I mean, when I agree with things, then I just listen and nod a lot.
Cool.
So, yeah. No, and I got a chance to make a few points, so that that I wanted to make. So I'm pretty good.
Cool.
One thing that I wanted to, that I noticed is when we were talking about the songs, the song that the Numenorians were singing, it really, like, if you listen to the words, like, I'm an old lady now and I have to watch everything with the subtitles on.
Oh yeah, is everyone else watching with subtitles? Because I am all the time.
I used to be like, that's dumb, but now I'm like, I need it. What did they say?
I don't know what they just said. Amber, please jump in and say goodbye to the group. It's totally cool that you need to.
Oh no, it's just my dog's barking in the background, so I'm gonna casually bow out now.
No worries. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us for a bit. And listeners, I will link everything from Amber in the episode description, so make sure to go check her out. So
yeah, thank you so much for having me, and y'all enjoy wrapping up, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
See you later.
Will. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so Andy, you were saying about the songs.
Like if you listen to the lyrics or watch them on your screen, as I did, it was interesting word choices that they used, and I felt like it really was glorifying valor more than I imagined Numenorians doing. It definitely gave me like Rohirrim vibes in a little way, but like the whole thing with this is something that we dived into in one of our episodes on the podcast, Tolkien with Friends, is talking about the description that Faramir gives of the Numenorians versus the middlemen of Middle-earth, who are like the Rohirrim, versus the wild men, who are like, the men of Dunland, and just how they have different cultural differences, and also like how the way he describes it is like having this value of like knowledge and physical strength, but also like having like the whole thing with Numenorians is like having farsighted and being really intuitive and just having a lot of knowledge and craftsmanship, whereas people like the Rohirrim, they're really glorifying valor and strength of arms and they're get things done in this type of thing. And so it was interesting, like I was like, the lyrics of this song I feel like fit better with like that version of men, like the men of Middle Earth, better than what I would say a Numenorian song like this should be. I also understand, like, they're going off to war and maybe it's, like, specifically for that purpose, but I also think that it's, like, it's just interesting because one of the things that I was really hoping with the show is that we get to see, like, the amazingness that is Numenor, but we've cut so fast to, like, the decline of Numenor that I'm like, are we gonna get to see these men and these people of this island really, like, doing the most, or are they all just gonna be kind of shitty at this point? Like, not saying that, like, Muriel is shitty, but, like, I think she's really cool, and Elendil is obviously the best, but he's not, everyone used to have more of his attitude, and we've gone so far into their future with the timeline compression that rather than, like, seeing it all happen, we're just, like, cutting to that part, and so, I don't know, I was really hoping that this show would, like, showcase more of, like, what made Numenor, but they really are giving me, like, Middle-earth guy vibes a little bit.
Yeah. I think maybe the show should have started out with, like, setting up Numenor, you know, and, like, I get how hard it is, though, because in order to show the grand scheme of things, you're not having the same Numenor characters every episode then, you know? So
I almost think we could have used,
hard.
like, a prequel for Numenor as well. Like we got kind of an explanation from Galadriel about the stuff with the elves, but I kind of think it would have been nice if we could have just had, like, a couple of episodes dedicated to, like, whatever they're setting us up for. You know what I mean? Like, show us the elves and the Numenorians chilling and being cool, you know? That I think that, and show us, like, how Numenor got started, and, you know, just, like, we get Gil-galad at the beginning of the series talking about, like, now come the days of peace, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there should have been this whole peaceful time, and I really would have liked to see that, but here we are.
But here we are, yeah.
Who knows what they'll do next?
And the way this episode ended, it, like, watching it again today, it almost feels like episodes 1 through 5 is kind of like one movie of a trilogy, and we're setting up for the next movie almost, because the way this episode ended, it felt like, okay, the next episode is going to be the season finale.
Yeah.
You know, like, really leading to some huge, great battle or something, but there's still 3 more episodes left. So I am really interested, as always, to see where the rest of this is going to go, because I think they've really set up that, like, some big things are going to happen, but I also don't want us to wait 2 more episodes for the, you know, like, they have all these, like, really grand moments, so lead it somewhere.
Makes me think that it's going to be like, you know, in Return of the King, how it's kind of like, you have your big thing, but then we get some, like, after stuff that's like, everything's nice. I'm almost like, is episode 6, like, the climax in a way, and we have, like, some of our storylines converging. Maybe, we push evil to another day, and then it's like, episodes 7 and 8 are like, Numenorians doing fun with the men of Middle-earth. And, like, I mean, obviously, like, Pharazôn wants to colonize, but he talked about lifting up the people, you know, like, getting them on their side a little bit. So maybe there's, like, some friendly shit happening there, and then maybe we'll finally get to, you know, Linden elves and the dwarves being chill together. We're gonna have that conflict about the mithril, like, if he can convince his dad.
Yeah.
So maybe they decide on that, and then they start forging, so that by the end of the series, maybe we finally get a ring? I don't know. It's in the title. I'm still waiting.
Maybe we make 1 ring per season.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering,
or at least the lesser rings could start.
So I'm wondering if it's like, so we have this, everything's chill, and then the final thing is like, maybe an Anatar tease. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, like, just don't know what to think.
That's all I got.
It wouldn't be great for pacing if they, like, moved the next 3 along really fast, though. People will have something to say about that.
It's interesting, like, we have no idea how much time is passing, or how much these timelines are, like, close to each other. Like, we know that, like, between episodes, it was like, hey, the dwarves are gonna help you out, and then they're already building the tower, like, so, is the tower almost done?
Yeah.
Like, when is spring? That's another thing that really bothers me, is this deadline of spring. It seems very arbitrary. I'm like, are you ever gonna explain that one.
Why it's
What's
this
happening?
spring.
Yeah, like, why
Yeah.
in the world would you think that your spirit, the Eldar spirits, are fading that fast? That's bananas. Like, even...
Somebody is lying to them.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, I get it, the Eldar fading is something that people are familiar with, but it just seems like... Even in Lord of the Rings, I didn't think, like, it didn't ever felt like, yeah, you've got, like, 2 seconds before everyone just, poof, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, so are they just gonna, are they just gonna, like, Thanos disappear? Like, is that what's gonna happen?
What did it sound like? And I'm like, that's a little much.
So, who knows? Okay, to end us on a little bit of a positive note then, what were each of your favorite moments from the episode?
Do you have a favorite, Mary?
Okay, I feel like I need to make a rule for myself that I can't choose a Halbrand moment. So, I would say a favorite like I love the moment where he sets down whatever that little pouch is and he walks away. And then at the last minute he's like, fine, and grabs it and runs away with it. I love everyone on this like most recent TikTok that I've made about Halbrand and saying like, well, you know, he's Sauron, right? And I'm like, he's not Sauron. I really think he is going to be, a lot of people think he's going to be the king of the dead, the ghost army that we see in Return of the King. And I love that because this idea that like you have this guy who failed to like return as a leader, and he is later set free by the guy who returned as a leader, and
I love that because
like and was successful in that.
We're gonna see him grow up. I'm in this show, and so by the time it comes to fight Sauron, and you can kind of see Halbrand like being a good guy, kind of waffling on if he wants to step up, that kind of thing. I mean, that feels very true to the King of the Dead armies, because while they secretly kind of worship Sauron, so I could totally see him leading people that do that, right? Which we know is true of the Southlands. But then the witch, or like the King of the Dead, he swore to help Isildur in the Battle of the Last Alliance, and then they don't do it. They just stay home.
And then they pieced out or whatever.
And then that's when Isildur curses them. And so it's that would be amazing to see, like, him grow up and like leading these men, and then also being like, Halbrand, we were good.
Yeah, you didn't show up. So
I like that.
I just hate so many people being like, you know, he's Sauron, and I'm like, there's no way he's Sauron, because Sauron would, if this was really Sauron, he would not be that reluctant to take power, you know? So, okay, but anyway, but a non-Halbrand favorite moment, I loved the fight sequence, the sword fight with Galadriel and the soldiers training them. But what really elevated that scene for me was the score underneath it, and how it was like choreographed to her movements, and like it was really creative, and you know, like bits of like humor thrown in there too. So I really enjoyed that part of the episode.
I was gonna say that would be my favorite part as well, and the pure joy on her face.
Oh yeah, she was
when
having
she's
a great
fighting.
time.
You know, that's she's
Yeah.
having fun. She's making, you know, her physical acting in that is really, really fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like the Númenórean theme is it's like quickly becoming my favorite, because every time they use it, it's like, ooh, you know, I love it, and it really, it's one of those things where it does harken back to when you're watching Lord of the Rings, the movies with Howard Shore's films, where it's like it draws you in a way that you weren't really expecting. You know, there's like several little bits and pieces that I loved in this episode. I think like whenever you've got Elrond and Durin together, I mean, they're a dynamic duo. Like, they are so fun. Their relationship is so good. The way that Elrond broke it to Durin, and Durin didn't like when. We've seen Durin mad at Elrond before, but the way that he took it I thought it was very cute, and like making him say that like the lives of the Eldar are in Durin's hand, he was like, yeah.
And meanwhile, in the same scene, saying, "Give me the meat and give it to me raw."
I mean, they're memeable as heck.
Oh, love it.
And then I think my second thing is just the relationship between Elendil and Isildur. Like, we got to see more of that in this episode. And I just, like, the way Elendil talks to Galadriel, on point. The way he talks to Isildur, I'm like, you're being a good, like, you're good at doing this dad thing, you know? So Elendil really shone in this episode for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are my faves.
Yeah, some really I think some really quality moments from seeing a lot of growth on Isildur's side. I was really worried when they were like, "No, you're going to go sweep the stables."
That he was going to like throw a fit.
And everyone was kind of laughing at him. I was really worried that he was going to be really pissed about. But you see him laughing it off with his friends. I'm like, "Okay. Whew, we're going to be good, maybe for the time being." So, yeah. Well, thank you both for joining, and shout out Amber, for joining us as well. You already said at the beginning of the episode, but please tell us again, where can people find you on the internet?
So I'm Callie Cosplay on TikTok, and also co-host of the Voices of Arda podcast, which you can find on, well, where you find podcasts.
Yeah.
That's just always the best answer. Yeah. It's just like, just go where you find podcasts. Whatever just find it there.
It's probably there.
It's there. Yeah.
More or less. So you can follow me on, this is Andy. You can follow me on TikTok at AndyINC. And then with everything else, it's Tolkien with Friends. You can also find all the links to that at tolkienwithfriends.com.
That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WBNE. If you want to learn more about the network, you can go to WBNE.org. The cover art is by Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at Vaishon Designs. You can get merch for That's What I'm Talking About by going to tpublic.com/user/TolkienAboutPod. Follow the podcast on social media at TolkienAboutPod. And you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at MCWattsUp and on Instagram at MCTurnDownForWhat. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/TolkienAboutPod. There are different tiers and perks available depending on what level of support you want to show. But remember, I literally love so much anyone who wants to show any level of support. So just the fact that you want to do that to begin with is enough for me. You can become a sponsor of the podcast like Susan. Susan, thank you so much. You are our newest sponsor. I appreciate that support so much. I appreciate that you are enjoying the podcast, and I hope that you are enjoying Rings of Power. I mean, as you could tell from this episode, I have a lot of excitement, surprisingly, around the series, but I know that a lot of people have varying feelings, so I hope that you're able to find enjoyment out of it, and I hope that you're able to find enjoyment out of these episodes on the podcast, and that, you know what? I just hope everyone is enjoying things, like, are the vibes good? So thank you, Susan. I appreciate your support. Do either of you want to jump in with some parting words for the audience?
Continue enjoying the show. If you liked an episode and then you hear a lot of people being like, I didn't like it because of this or that, don't let that stop you from liking it. Like, still like it. Just like it unapologetically. That would be my only advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that what we've seen so far is really gorgeous and really beautiful. I think all the actors are bringing their A game, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So people have worked hard on this show, and and you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's like, I'm not going to write off all of that effort based on one episode or one scene. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm so interested to see how the season ends. I can't believe that we're already getting close to that after years of anticipation.
So much waiting.
So much build up.
So yeah, I'm excited and I'm looking forward to season 2 already.
Yes, yeah, honestly, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about.